Welcome to the coming apocalypse. Evangelist and pastor Paul Begley will take you on a journey into the end times prophecy. He'll examine current world events and explain how they relate to the end times. For decades, Pastor Begley has provided people all over the world with an understanding of today's world events from a biblical perspective. Now, here's your host, Pastor Paul Begley.
Welcome. This is the coming apocalypse. I'm Pastor Paul Begley. We're going back to Jerusalem for part 2. You watched it last week with Avi Lipkin. Unbelievable revelation information he's going to share with us on a prophetic level. So as we get ready to go back to Jerusalem, you might want to get some pencil and paper and write down some of the facts and the prophetic insight from Avi Lipkin in Jerusalem. Let's go there now. Are you serious? Are you serious? We enjoyed that last week's broadcast so much, we had to bring back our good friend, Avi Lipkin, right here from Jerusalem. Avi, great to have you. It's an honor to have you on the show. It truly is.
Thank you.
Avi, you jumped into some stuff in the last show. It's drove my viewers crazy. They want to know, what about the third temple? There's a lot of talk here. It's unbelievable worldwide. Yet with all the chaos, how could there even be a concept of a third temple ever coming to pass?
Okay. I have to tell you a story. I always tell this in the churches.
Okay.
And, I speak in the church a half hour, an hour, or whatever. And then in the end, sometimes there are questions and answers. And so there was this lady in the church, and she got up and she said, "Tell me, when are you Jews going to build the third temple?" And I said to her, "Listen, madam, we cannot build the third temple because it would start World War III. You have to destroy the mosques, and there's no room for the two mosques in the temple. It's one or the other."
Okay.
And of course, the Muslims will never agree to a Jewish temple next to their mosques. It's, so we really can't touch the mosques. So the pastor was sitting up on the stage right behind me, and he kind of like whispers, but loud enough for everyone to hear, and he said, "Burn it down." So I turned around, looked at the pastor. I said, "You can't burn down the mosques." And he yelled out, "Burn it down right now." It was in the South, as you can tell.
Yeah.
And I said, well, anyway, so it's kind of funny. Every church is always some lady who gets up at the back and says, "When are you going to build a temple?" And anyway, so I say it like this. Israel is constantly, we say, dancing on eggshells. It has to dance on eggshells and not break them. And the whole world, as you know, ISIS can be killing millions of people. You can have 500,000 dead in the Syrian civil war, and nobody says anything. But of course, if the Jews build a house in East Jerusalem, the whole world jumps on Israel.
Right.
So temple, okay, so what did we share in the previous show? ISIS has said that they're going to blow up the Kaaba. They're going to blow up the Black Stone.
The Black Stone, going to blow it up.
Yeah, and the Black Stone is the jugular of Islam. And so Islam is, ISIS is doing it for its own ideological reasons, but basically ISIS is the one that's going to blow up the Black Stone, destroy Islam, and then what they're going to do also, they're going to blow up the oil wells.
Okay.
That's the no-no that the one world government cannot tolerate. The one world government is going to say, your God, is Satan, which is what I've been saying, and our God is money.
Right. Yes, in the West.
In the
West,
one world government is money. And if you touch those oil wells, you can blow up the Black Stone if you want, but we want to. Okay. Then, in addition, I predict ISIS is going to carry out 9/11 attacks in America and Europe, which will kill millions of people.
They're saying that right now, Avi. Yeah. They're saying that they're training scores of suicide bombers to carry out chemical weapon attacks in America and all of Europe. The free world, the Western world.
Also, if you stand at the end of any runway of any American airport at 6 in the morning, 6 in the morning is when all the planes take off.
Right.
And you have a terrorist team at each one of these airports, and you shoot down 20 planes in 5 minutes all over the U.S. and Canada, that's martial law.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And blow up the planes, attack the hotels, attack the stadiums, attack the malls, kill millions of people. Then the one world government says, we're going to ban Islam.
And so that's how the Illuminati, that's how you see the one world government, the New World Order.
Yeah.
It's at that moment of total chaos and martial law being declared.
Right.
And we have people in America right now watching are absolutely convinced that Obama may actually call for martial law and not leave office.
He'll do it after the elections in November the 7th.
So, if it's going to happen, you say after the election, he's going to wait and see who wins.
Right. It doesn't matter who wins. He's still going to do it. Yeah. Because he's in the White House sent by the Saudis. And, you know, Pastor Carl Gallups did YouTube.
Yes.
5 million hits. You know, people have said this. I've been saying this for years already, that Obama's a Muslim. He swore he's a Muslim. His father was a Muslim. His stepfather was a Muslim. He swore he was going to destroy Israel. I mean, what more do we need? My wife picked up all this information. So when the one world government bans Islam, and ISIS already blew up the Black Stone, there's no more Islam. So then the one world government will come to Israel and say, we command you to build your temple now. In other words, Israel will have to build a temple at the orders of the one world government, which we want to do anyway. A lot of Christians
And there won't be no resistance anymore because you're saying Islam has been basically gone.
Okay, and then the one world government says, we will send our leader. Nobody knows who the Antichrist is.
Right.
We're going to send our leader to officiate at your temple.
And here comes the Antichrist.
Da, 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 da.
Okay. You mentioned Psalms 83, basically, when you mentioned Gallup.
Right.
Okay. So when you start thinking about Psalms 83, do you see that taking place? Is that part of this whole war?
Okay. Let me say something. I always say things out of the box. Okay. Now, when I go to churches, I say, who here does not believe in God? So, of course, nobody dares to raise their hand in the church if they don't believe in God. I said, you know what? You know how I know there's a God? You know, God says to the Israelites in the book of Exodus, you be still, you be silent, and I will fight for you. But isn't that what he says to Moses?
Absolutely.
God does the fighting. Okay, now, I was an Israeli army spokesman from, 1989 to 2002. And it was constantly drilled into us. We had a peace agreement with Egypt. After 94, we had a peace agreement with Jordan. We were negotiating with Arafat and the Palestinians. Not that it brought us any good, but we're negotiating, so the situation is peaceful. The only enemies we were facing were Syria and Iraq, the two most powerful countries in the Middle East with tens of thousands of missiles and rockets, and Saddam Hussein did send 39 rocket Scud missiles at Israel.
Did.
So I ask you, where is Syria today? There is no Syria.
There is no Syria.
God finished Syria.
There's no Iraq.
And there's no Iraq either. So you see, it wasn't Israel. Israel's just been minding its own business.
Right.
God has been doing the work for us.
And it's happening because this radical Islamic group, of course, ISIS, they see it that there's too many moderates, and they see there's too much compromise, and it's not a pure Islamic religion.
Right.
And they're trying to cleanse it. That's why al-Baghdadi calls himself the Caliph. And he has declared this the caliphate.
Yeah. He has a problem. Erdogan of Turkey, he's the caliph.
Wait.
The Turks and the Arabs are going to have to fight it out.
It's going to be crazy.
It is already
And
crazy.
what about the Kurds? I mean, let's face it. The Kurds have been, no one ever wants to support them, yet they seem to be the only group that can actually win battles against ISIS. There's some prophecies in the Bible that talks about that a small people.
Right.
And it talks about the Medes, okay, in Isaiah 13. So do you see the Kurds eventually getting some land? I mean, they're 75% Christian, if I'm correct. So do they play a role? Do they play a role in any of this?
Well, the Kurds, firstly, are Muslim. They are mostly Sunni Muslim.
Okay.
There are some Shiite Kurds. There are also Yazidi Kurds. And there may be some Christians among them, too.
Yes, there is.
The important point is here, Bashar al-Assad represents all these minorities.
Okay.
Fighting this alignment is Sunni Muslims.
Okay.
Now, the Kurds are a fighter people. And an interesting point, in spite of them being Muslims, the Kurds have always been friends with the Jews. The Kurds and the Jews have a long brotherly relationship, in spite of the fact that they're Muslims.
I understand.
It's
a cultural thing.
It's a cultural thing, exactly. The Kurds are 20 million people. How can it be that they don't have a country? So what they have now, which is really, really like virtual country, is northern Iraq.
Yes.
But the Syrian Kurds, the Kurds in Turkey are waking up, the Kurds in Iran are waking up. I do see eventually an independent state of Kurdistan when Iran and Turkey come apart. And I predict Turkey and Iran are going to come apart.
So when the wheels fall apart and all of the borders are being wiped out there in the Middle East, Kurdistan, if you will, the Kurds will have their own.
And what will be our border with the Kurds? The Euphrates.
Wow.
They will come down from the northeast.
Wow.
We go up from the southwest.
Wow.
We'll be the neighbors.
I've been in Jerusalem now for about 10 days.
Yeah.
Been blessed to be here for the celebration, the 49th anniversary of the reunification of this great city.
Right.
The Sunday, the joy the singing, the dancing, people, the young people. I never seen so many young people, thousands, wrapping themselves in the Israeli flag.
Right.
There was no violence. There was no, it was an overwhelming sense of victory
Because
here.
the Arabs respect strength.
Okay.
They attack you if you're weak. It's like in the animal world.
Okay. So they understand this.
They don't detect weakness when the Jewish kids are in the streets.
And the thing is,
Christians
it was
also.
the first day of Ramadan.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was walking around, and we walked probably 8 miles, the old city, everywhere, and the same thing. There was joy, there was celebration, there was power. Now we've just had a shooting late last night as we're taping this in Tel Aviv.
Right.
4 people are dead, 9 were shot.
Right.
Is this the beginning of the violence, or is this just an isolated incident?
Well, firstly, let me say one thing, okay? And I know that there are many, I'll look at the camera to say this, I know there are many people out there who are afraid to come to Israel. You should not be afraid. Usually, if, God forbid, there's some kind of a terrorist attack, it is not against American tourists or any kind of tourists.
Never is.
Usually, it's specifically targeting Israeli soldiers or certain types of places where Israelis frequent and not tourists. So your way to stand with Israel is to come to Israel, not be afraid, be with us. Now, having said that, when you have a country which is 6 million Jews, 500,000 Christians, and 2 million Palestinians, if you have 1% of 2 million is how much? It's 20,000 crazy people. But we have a military, we have a secret service, and we are onto them. And you know what? We lost 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. So if a few dozen people get killed over a period of a year, it's nothing compared to what we have paid historically.
A great price, that's right. Unbelievable.
How many people get killed in Chicago?
You want to know that this is what the point I was going to make. I'll look at the camera toward the Americans as well and say, Israel, I've been here many, many times. This safest, it's beautiful, the security is tremendous, and it's way safer to walk the streets of Jerusalem right now than to walk the streets of Atlanta, New York, Chicago, LA, Indianapolis, Indiana, okay? So believe me, the propaganda and it's really the spiritual significance of this tremendous city is what this is all about. It's why the whole world is so concerned.
God has his hand on this city.
Absolutely. And the 3 religions of the apocalypse are converging on one spot, but God is in control.
Right.
It's going to be all right.
You know, Muhammad Ali, the boxer, just died.
Yes.
And people were asking him about white and black relationships, you know, racism and all that.
Right.
He says, we blacks, he said, Muhammad Ali, we should be trying to figure out how we can make peace amongst ourselves to prevent 36 people dying in Chicago every night.
Every night?
Every night.
Yeah. Avi, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for standing in the gap, really. And may you win a seat in the Knesset. That would be awesome.
God willing. If God wants it, I want it. And if God doesn't want it, you know, I've got a wonderful wife, hasn't killed me after 44 years. I've got sons, grandsons. I live in the greatest country in the world, Israel.
Right.
And I'm an American also. I go to America, also the greatest country in the world. And I say Israel's the greatest nation in the world.
Okay, and America's the greatest country. 2 things. Israel was foundation was by God. America was founded on the Word of God.
Two nations under God.
Wow.
Indivisible.
Thank you. With liberty. All right. A brand new book I've just finished called Reflections from the Land of the Prophets. This book is filled with beautiful pictures, a pictorial, if you will, of the Holy Land, and some definite great insight to the prophets that once spoke mightily in the times leading us up to the present. It's a prophetic word, a reflection of what God has spoken, not only historically from the past, but for the future. Go to my website. It's available now. Avi, you've got a brand new book out that's really is thought-provoking. It's creating a stir out there among Bible prophecy people. Can you tell us a little bit about this book and what is your message?
Yes, well, indeed, Americans, and I'm an American, and I've been making my living the last 26 years in the Christian churches.
Islamic rivalry.
Islamic rivalry. Americans know very little about Islam.
Okay.
And they know very little about the history of Russia, Poland, Ukraine, which is directly connected to what's happening now in the Middle East with Syria and Iraq, and the Shiite-Sunni war. So the book ostensibly is about the Shiites and the Sunnis, and I do give background into it, but I explain how the world is divided into 2. In other words, you have United States, NATO, Europe, Poland, and Ukraine fighting the Russian Orthodox Russians.
Right.
And the Russians are backing the Shiites, Iran, Shiite Iraq, Bashar al-Assad, against the Sunnis. So the Americans in the West are with the Sunnis, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt also, and the Russians, Chinese, and North Koreans, not good guys, but they are with the Shiites. Right. And of course, Israel is squat in the middle. Everybody hates Israel. And so what I do is I try to straighten things out. I try to make things clear for the reader. It's not a thick book. It's easy to read, and it gives a lot of, I'm 67 years old. It gives 67 years of my life in that book because I see it through my eyes. And I see myself as pretty much an objective observer, but with my grandparents, you know, coming from Poland and Ukraine and Russia.
Right.
And I was a Sovietologist, so I understand why Russia is where it is, why the Europeans and Americans are where they are, born and raised in America, how Israel looks at it, how the Shiites and Sunnis look at each other, and then in the end, how I believe that Sunni Islam will destroy Shiite Islam, and then Sunni Islam will, you know, the ISIS will blow up the Blackstone, they'll blow up the oil wells, they will carry out horrible atrocities in the Western Christian countries. The one world government then will ban all kinds of Islam and command Israel to build the third temple and the Antichrist and all these things that Christians are wondering, how is this going to play out?
Right.
So I think it's an interesting book.
It's very thought-provoking, and what you've done is you've identified the true alliances that we are witnessing.
Right.
We definitely see Russia locking arms with the Iranians, trying to save Assad in Syria, and that is all the Shiite connection. But and the Chinese also jump in there and help a little bit too.
Because the Chinese have a problem with Sunni Islam in their west. Xinjiang province is a Muslim province, and they're Turkic, and they want to break away from China and join the other 6 republics that broke away from the Soviet Union. So China has a problem, and China also has another problem with terrorism in their cities, because the Muslims are everywhere in China.
So here's what we've been noticing in the last few days. There's been Russia. There's been these intercepting of planes, a submarine yesterday. The British Royal Navy, as we were taping this yesterday, the British Royal Navy intercepted a Russian sub. Same time, China intercepted a U.S. spy plane, okay? They're constantly blowing past each other. This is it's almost like there's too many games being played. Benjamin Netanyahu was in Russia, meeting with Putin, talking about the Syrian war, and also saying, let's make sure we don't shoot at each other along the Golan Heights. And I'm going to be going to the Golan Heights in a couple days and filming up there. Tell me, how do we keep, with all the war games, all the play-in, technology is advanced, how does we keep this world from somebody making a major mistake?
Well, I don't think that it's a mistake. I think that there's a very clear, concise plan that the one world government, now I believe there's a one world government.
I do too, yes.
And I've had very close encounters of another kind with the one world government.
Okay.
And the one thing the one world government cannot tolerate in Russia or in Israel is a religious nationalist government. Russia is religious nationalist, Israel is religious nationalist, and I see that the one world government wants to, and I hope they don't kill Putin, but that one of the oligarchs or somebody in Russia will kill him in order to get Russia to play ball with what the West wants and bring Russia into the one world government. Russia today is not the one world government.
No.
Russia is an obstacle to the world.
They're fighting against it, aren't they?
Right, and then the whole world comes down on Israel.
When you take a look at this from the Israeli perspective, they have to try to weave through a maze of political, economical, and religious pressures. And I don't know how in the world they can do this. Now you have this movement where they're trying to boycott Israeli products.
Right.
But it doesn't seem to be affecting Israel. They seem to be...
It's boomerang.
I mean...
Now everybody goes looking for the products that are being boycotted, and Israel's economy is blooming.
So again, God's hand is upon it. You can't change biblical prophecy.
Right.
It's coming together so quickly.
You know, I learned from the Christians a Jewish scripture.
Okay.
Zechariah 2, verse 12.
Okay.
It says the Jews are the apple of God's eye.
Right.
And anybody who touches the Jews touches the apple of God's eye. Now, you don't want to touch the apple of God's eye.
No, I don't want to do that. No.
So, and those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And so what I see happening indeed is the BDS, they want to hurt Israel, and so God causes Israel to prosper from that. Christians, I think also, are going to prosper very soon if they vote correctly in the next elections in the United States.
Yes.
I think at some stage God is going to have the Muslims use them as an instrument to bring out horrible atrocities in the Christian Western world, and because nothing else is working. Christians are complacent, Jews are complacent, and the Jews will be slaughtered in America and Canada by the Muslims if they don't move to Israel. So I see Israel not being crushed.
But
I see
expanding.
And the population growing. And great things will continue to happen. And you guys, the Christians, you're going to be part of it. You're going to be with us. That's why I'm forming a Judeo-Christian party.
Well, you know, we love Israel. We love Israel.
It's your country too.
Thank you. And that's, well, we're grafted in, okay?
Right.
We're grafted in, and we become heirs of, the seed of Abraham. We become heirs of God through that. And we love Israel.
Right.
And your point is, and why you're forming your political party.
Right.
And the reason you're running for the Knesset.
Right.
Is you see Christians and Jews, a lot of Jews are married to Christians, and you see this amount of people coming from America and other parts of the world maybe, coming into Israel to participate.
Right. And indeed, the Israeli law regarding the immigration of Christians to Israel says, if you have one Jewish grandfather or one Jewish grandmother, you would have been gassed by the Nazis. So you have the right to move to Israel. So if you are 1/4 Jewish, you can move to Israel. If you are married to a Jew, or if you have blood relations, first-degree blood relations, the Nazis would kill you, then you're allowed to move to Israel. Even if you're not a Jew, you're going to be a Christian believer. So that's why I'm saying, if you have 6 million Jews and intermarriage with the Christians is 80%, you're talking about 3-4 million Christians and children of Jews and Christians who may go to church on Sunday. They're going to be moving to Israel because the Muslims are not going to ask questions.
Your wife is Egyptian.
Egyptian Jewish, correct.
So tell me, Egypt, during this 5 years, twice, okay, Jose Mubarak was removed.
Right.
Obama called for him to go. Hillary Clinton said his days are numbered. In 18 days, he was gone.
Right.
After a 30-year relationship with Israel, a peace agreement with Jimmy Carter.
And alliance with the U.S.
And with the United States. And tourism was great. Everything was wonderful. Then they get Mohammed Mursi.
Yeah.
Okay, the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Right.
A disaster in 1 year, and he was oppressing the Egyptian people.
Right.
Now Al-Sisi, the general, is in charge.
Right.
Where do you see Egypt going from here? How do you see the role they'll play?
Well, firstly, this week there was a poll carried out, independent poll in Egypt. 91% of the Egyptians are happy with Al-Sisi. He's doing a good job. Egypt really was on the brink, and he saved Egypt. Egypt is now, I don't want to say friendlier to Israel than ever, but the militaries are working very closely together. Al-Sisi has come forward with his own recommendation regarding Israel making peace with the Palestinians, and that's the key to the whole problem, which it's not. But there is no hostility in what Al-Sisi is saying. And the militaries and intelligence and diplomats are working very closely with Israel now. I don't know how long it'll continue, but the relations between Egypt and Israel are better today than ever.
That's amazing. I mean, and Al-Sisi's also cracked down on the Muslim Brotherhood.
He has to.
He's got his hands almost completely around the Sinai now.
Right.
He's shutting down as many of those tunnels that they try to dig underneath there to bring into the Gaza Strip.
Right.
So, and tourism seems to be trying to come back. So to your point, he saved Egypt, and he saved, I believe, the peace agreement that Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin signed with Jimmy Carter some 30 years ago. I really thought that was over.
Yeah.
So Egypt will play a role. You know, there's a biblical prophecy that says that Egypt, Assyria, and Israel will build a highway.
Isaiah 19.
Okay, can you expand on that just a little bit?
Okay, well, this is indeed a messianic, very hopeful scenario for a relationship in which, Assyria doesn't exist today, but that there will be a peaceful relationship between Israel, Egypt, and whatever
comes out of Syria.
In Syria, Iraq. Now, what did I say before? That the Kurds will come down to the Euphrates and we'll go up to the Euphrates. So it's not going to be enemies. It's going to be friends.
So but the Kurds might be the ones that do it.
That's what I think. That's the logical excuse. There are also other groups in Iran who are against the Ayatollahs, and they would like peace with Israel. We always had a good relationship with Iran. Iran The people are not the problem. The problem is the takeover by Khomeini. Because of Jimmy Carter and Zbigniew Brzezinski, who are probably the two most stupidest people in the American leadership. The Shah is your ally.
I know.
America destroys him. Saddam Hussein was your ally from 1980 to 1988 in the war against Iran.
America destroys him.
America destroys him. Mubarak destroyed.
30 years ally.
You know, in Israel, that lesson is not lost on us.
Avi, thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you. Always a powerful insight. Folks, I'm telling you, go to his website, they're on the screen. Get his book, Islamic Rivalry, and let it begin to literally provoke you to search the scriptures and to understand the times we're living in.
And it's also on Amazon and Kindle. And
it's everywhere.
And I have 7 books, so people, if they like to read,
get them all.
Stock up.
All right. God bless.
All right, folks, I'm telling you, we are living. Have you ever seen or heard of anything so intense as what's happening right now in these last days? You know what? It's time to give our lives to Jesus Christ. And I'd love to hear from you. You know, you could write me. Maybe you have a prayer request, or maybe you have a praise report. Write me. I need to hear from you, actually, because I love to pray with people and understand their needs. And I also know there's a lot of you out there maybe that need to give your life to Jesus Christ. It is the most important thing, the Great Commission, and that's to get people to come to Jesus. And if you're watching right now, and you say, I love hearing these shows, I love these broadcasts, I love the Word, but I haven't got things right in my life. Well, it's time to call upon the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. You can go to my website if you want to and go in the chat room. There's people there, they'll pray with you. But why don't you pray right now? Why don't we give our lives to Jesus Christ? Let's not wait till it's too late. Let's make things right. I'm telling you, we're going to continue to bring forth the powerful message of Jesus Christ every week here. We're going to show you that you're living in the last days. But will you make that decision to come to Jesus? I'll see you next week, right here. God bless. Thank you so much for watching the broadcast. I really appreciate it. And I'll tell you something. If you'd like to know more about some of our books that we've written, go to our website at www.paulbegleyprophecy.com. That's www.paulbegleyprophecy.com. I've even got music CDs. I actually have a couple country gospel music CDs that we recorded that I think you'll really enjoy. I have 5 books that I've written. This is my newest one, Jerusalem Jihad. Jerusalem Jihad. This has to do about an end-time apocalyptic scenario that includes the rebuilding of the temple, also the 2 witnesses, and it's a powerful presentation, if you will, on how things are starting to come together here in the last days. So again, check out all of our books, CDs, and everything else we have, and your donations are greatly appreciated at our website. God bless you, in Jesus' name.